Hello and welcome to another edition of the Johannesburg Stock Exchange Investment Challenge. I'm Ropi Wamadzena, and there are a number of global events that are taking place that have had an impact on the volatility of the global markets, not just the JSE. We'll bring you all those details in a moment. Three big events have happened over the last 2 years that have completely changed the way in which market participants and investors engage on stock exchanges around the world. It's no different here in South Africa. So you'll remember in 2020 we had COVID-19. It reached our shores here in South Africa in March 2020 and of course sent the markets wild. We had level 5 lockdown where, if you'll remember correctly, you couldn't even buy your favorite snack or some hot food, and if you're a fan of rotisserie chicken, you couldn't get that either. Then came in the Russian invasion, where Russia decided to invade Ukraine. It caused the price of commodities to skyrocket, and of course that had a huge impact on the South African consumer. Why? Because the price of commodities were higher, which means we were paying more for oil, and that means the price of fuel and food was higher. It did benefit companies like in the mining sector, where they are net exporters of commodities, and they of course were creating massive amounts of tax revenue for South Africa, and that is how we were actually able to increase our social relief grant of 350 Rand to earlier this year. Then we have the tensions between the United States and China. Many are looking at that situation and wondering if we're going to be seeing a Cold War. And of course, that would be detrimental to the entire world because they are the two biggest economies at the moment. So those tensions are being watched closely. And of course, emerging markets like South Africa are acting cautiously ahead of developments between those two countries. And that's really what's informed the activity and the volatility on the stock markets. Retail sector suffering quite a bit, given the fact that retailers are dealing with increased input costs because of high inflation. And then, of course, like I mentioned, mining companies benefiting from the higher commodity prices. Two companies in particular that I can think of, Tungela Resources and Exxaro, net exporters of thermal coal, that being in huge demand at the moment, and then, of course, giving them the kind of revenue that we have been seeing. And one of the reasons that is because Russia, in its tensions with Ukraine and other countries in Europe, has decided to close the taps for gas. So countries like the United Kingdom have actually announced recently that they will be forced to introduce blackouts in the United Kingdom. Yes, it's not just South Africa that's going to be experiencing load shedding, and that'll start in the UK in January unless they can secure sufficient sources of gas. And this is something we might see across the European Union as well. And with rising inflation, it's just going to put more pressure on consumers when they try to find alternative sources of power. Hi Valdine, I hope you're doing very well today. Let's start with what exactly it is you do at the JSE.
Hi, good day, Drufilwe. Thanks for having me here. I am the Director of Capital Markets at the JSE, and in this role, my responsibility includes looking after all the listings and trading activity for the JSE.
And obviously, one of your big roles, as you've just mentioned, there is a capital market. I mean, it sounds like a very technical term, so one would see it or hear it and think, boy, I wonder what that is. So maybe just break it down in some basic language for us in terms of what that is and how exactly it works.
The stock exchange is a place where people have come to raise capital. And then once capital is raised, you then get the ability to trade, to buy and sell whatever is listed on the exchange. So capital markets is really looking after that for the South African financial investment universe. At the JSE, we have a multi-asset class exchange. So we look after equities, which are your stocks, as well as bonds, which are predominantly the government bonds traded in South Africa, and then a whole host of derivative instruments across currencies, commodities, and some of our bonds markets and equities markets. So capital markets really encompasses the whole breadth of the trade listings and trade activity in equities, bonds, and derivatives. And that is what the JSE looks at in terms of our capital markets division. There are other ancillary functions, which we'll go into a little bit deeper shortly, but essentially, that is what an exchange represents, is the formation of capital, helping companies or issuers raise capital, and then having investors have the ability to trade in and out of those positions through the secondary market trade activity.
Right, and we can go on to those functions in that. How do these capital markets, or what it is that you do at the JSE, help the stock exchange with the trading and the capital flows that we see on a daily basis?
So really, it is a critical part of capital formation. You know, when people want to grow their companies, and growth is really important, especially from a South Africa perspective, it leads all the way down to supporting growth and the gross domestic product, the GDP for our economy, and really trying to see, you know, which leads to job creation, sustainability, etc. So the impact of the JSE is really critical in this regard by facilitating the listings and the trading of these securities, which is core to the JSE's business. It helps companies, it helps issuers raise capital that enable their own operations and their business to grow. And then it allows investors like you, like me, portfolio managers, pension funds, take advantage and share in this growth by trading, by expressing a view to say whether they will buy a company or sell a company or invest in the returns of, for example, bonds. So it's really meaningful for supporting growth in an ecosystem, as well as having individuals participate in expressing a view as to whether they believe in the growth profile. So it's really the ability to have shared impact in South Africa. That capital raise is really important for companies to grow, like I said, support the South African economy. And then some of the products focus on really important aspects now of late, items of environmental, social, and governance aspects, or key sustainability aspects that are necessary for world and global growth and sustainability are expressed through products we bring on exchange. So it really is a function of supporting grassroots development for any ecosystem, as well as long-term sustainability of a marketplace and a country.
Very importantly, there things you've mentioned is the benefit to the companies and to the broader economy, and of course that's sustainability. But we also have to understand that the JSE within itself is also a company. So how do all these components that you've spoken about help the JSE or make it work as a business as well?
It's pretty cool that we also listed on our own exchange. This happened in the early 2000s. And it's really, the being listed on an exchange gives you certain levels of requirements to stay listed, whether it's from the Companies Act or from our own listing rules. But what it does, it also expresses the environment that South Africa is in. We all saw how volatile things have got, whether it was through the pandemic, whether it's through the geopolitical concerns now with Russia and with Ukraine, or whether it's the high inflation environment that the world is facing at the moment. Being listed on the exchange helps investors express a view. You know, how do you feel about South Africa? How do you feel about markets? So the JSE being listed on our own exchange is a good example or proxy to express that view. Secondly, we are held to our own listing requirements, and having a certain set of listing rules and regulations, as well as all the dictates that come with it, things, elements of governance, for example, having a sound, robust board, helps have investor protection and also accountability for us as management teams in how we run the company, how transparent we are in what we disclose, how we are committing to growth, not just for our company, but for the marketplace, how we prioritizing key elements to position South Africa as an investment destination. So the JSE as a listed company is held to the same standards as what we would put for any listed company, which gives investors protection and shareholders the assurance that we run a good company and we held to high standards. And then secondly, it gives us the ability to really innovate and respond to the market that we operate in South Africa, in capital markets, to bring best product, relevant product, and really strengthen South Africa's investment appeal.
And that which you put on yourselves as the JSE, as a business, is something that you require of all the other listed entities, Valdene. Those listing requirements are absolutely critical to ensure that businesses are conducting themselves in a way that, as you say, benefits not only the shareholders, but broader society as a whole.
Absolutely, and that is really important. As people get to put their money basically behind an instrument, whether it's a company in our equities market, or whether someone's raising debt and it's an issuance through the bond market, people are trusting stewards of their money, and they want to see that money grow and support their own livelihood and their own wealth creation. So a lot of the money that comes into the financial markets across the world comes from pension funds. So this is for, essential and critical for long-term sustainability of the livelihood of individuals. So having high standards in governance, in protection, in the way we run our business is really important to have ecosystem that thrives together and collectively. So it really is essential. South Africa has held itself to high standards. We've had King Principles, which is a governing standard for being listed and in terms of what dictates our listing requirements. This is world class in terms of the level that we hold ourselves to. And as such, the JSE is among the top 20 exchanges in the world, not just on the continent. We are the largest on the African continent, but the biggest in the world, among the top 20 in the world. And you see that strength come through in the private sector in South Africa. The companies that have spurred our economy for the last couple of decades has been critical, and most of them have come to public markets to list on the JSE.
I mean, what does it take to work at the JSE or to do what you do? I mean, when you think about a stock exchange and all the things you've just spoken about, you think of things like the Wolf of Wall Street and the craziness and the long hours. So maybe just break that down for us in terms of what it is that's required in terms of education, even your personality. You kind of have to be strategic in what you do and how you approach the capital market. So talk us through that.
Look, I think our investment challenge participants will be very pleased to know that the ecosystem has never embraced more diversity in thinking and in background. So that's really cool. I started in markets almost 2 decades ago, and at that time, really critical elements was a background in finance. A lot of participants had some type of commerce degree, either in financial services, in investments, actuarial science, chartered accountants, economists. That was really the profile. Personality matters. You're very close to the real economy. So having a strong analytical ability, having interest in markets, having a research type mind, having a sales personality as you deal with clients was really critical in success. But things have evolved so much so now you get a high focus as the world is disrupted by innovations in technology. You get a high focus in people who have coding backgrounds. As we get inundated with a whole host of data. You have people who are data scientists, engineers with crafty and creative minds who help break down analytical thinking are also in high demand. And so the world has changed in terms of what makes the profile. When stock markets used to be an open outcry, so where people were physically on a trading floor, things like your own physical physique mattered, and that's why it was typical that big, more brute males were successful on a stock exchange and on a trading floor. But thankfully, 2 decades ago in my time, it wasn't. It was an electronic system, so it didn't mean your physique. And now, when you look at the innovation and the disruption that's coming, the way people connect, social media platforms more than research and detailed analytical reports. So the breadth of what is required to succeed in this market really comes from a passion and an interest in markets more than some theoretical background, but elements of data science, of computer science, commerce will all be good and valuable underpins. Many people in our industry also go for industry specific qualifications such as MBAs and CFAs. But really, depending on the host of professions within the association, there's different types of backgrounds that would make you thrive.
And have you found over the last 20 years, Valdine, that you've been in this industry, that more and more women have grown a passion for markets and trading and just the business world, not just in South Africa, but on a global level as well?
Absolutely. Look, I will say across industries, there's definitely more that can be done to have a better gender diversity. Um, but in my own experience, while it is still a male dominated industry, you are seeing more and more females come up the ranks a lot. More than just come into the industry, the staying power, the lasting power of females in the industry is becoming a lot better. And we have a saying in financial markets: flow begets flow. So one type of activity will generate another, and I think the same is with getting better gender diversity. The more you see females in the industry, the more encouraged you can say that you can have a lifestyle that supports a thriving career in financial markets, as well as whatever is required to thrive in the industry.
Finally, Valdine, what kind of advice would you give to a young person who's heard of the investment challenge and is toying around with the idea of perhaps participating, but because of the gravity of the capital markets and the stock exchange, might be a little bit fearful?
Firstly, I'd say thank you to the participants who are interested. That's really cool because this helps you generate your own command of financial inclusion and independence. Learning how to invest can be both fun and rewarding, definitely challenging, but it's a good step towards being financially secure and responsible as an individual. While this investment challenge is focused on trying to get the best returns over a period of time, remember, investing can also be a long-term strategy. One of the stalwarts in the market is Warren Buffett, and part of his mantra in investing is investing in quality over a long period of time. Whereas, in what we've seen in fast-moving markets, you could also express shorter-term views. So it's important to have a balanced thinking and approach in how you invest and what you consider. And really, it's also to understand the risks that you take on. Taking on more risk than you can afford can really lead to unfavorable outcomes and concerns. So having discipline in your thinking and in your execution is really important when you participate. The key to good performance in investing is really having a good understanding of the environment. And what are the instruments and the risks associated that you are investing in? We've walked through many financial crises, and a lot of that came from not understanding the products or the circumstances in which you were investing, which brought a big domino effect to unfavorable consequences in marketplaces. And then being cognizant of how changes in an environment can impact the value of your investment is really critical. You may look at something today and say it's really awesome and really interesting, and you want to invest in a specific instrument or company or bond, but over time, understand, if certain things happen, how that will be impacted. So really understand dependencies. And then the last point I'd make is being well informed and researching appropriate information. Now you are spoiled for choice in where your information comes from. But the more knowledge you have, the more diversity in your thinking really helps you to have a more comprehensive review of what you're investing and helping you make better investment decisions. So this really encourages you to be an all-rounder in your thinking. And the world of investing is really one that will enlighten your universe. So I really encourage you to take up this challenge, get a fare with what are the drivers and dynamics within investing, and become better, responsible stewards of your own finances and wealth creation for the long term of your future.
Very, very interesting insights. Valdine Reddy, Director for Capital Markets at the JSE. Thank you very much for your time and those insights for whoever wants to invest. And these are interesting times, given the geopolitical developments that are currently happening, would really push someone to think hard and strategize as they look into where to invest, whatever they can. Thank you very much for your time. So if you thought capital markets was a very complicated term that you couldn't engage with, I hope that helped you out. So it's one of the most exciting parts of the JSE Investment Challenge because we get to engage with the participants that are currently part of the challenge. But before we do that, let's just take a look at some of the winners this far. So it's time to engage with the participants of this period, rather, as a JSE Investment Challenge. Of course, they're engaging with the markets and really just furnishing themselves with the knowledge of how to navigate the stock market in the last few period, given the kind of geopolitical developments that we have seen. I'm going to start with Roberto Coelho. He is from the University of the Witwatersrand, and of course, his team name is called Dancing in the Dark. Roberto, thank you very much for joining us, and maybe just indicate why it is that you thought you should be participating in this particular challenge.
Hi, thank you for the opportunity. Myself and the reason myself and the team are in this challenge, I think, are twofold. Number one, I really personally enjoy finance. I really enjoy the stock market, both locally and abroad. And because of that, I started and learned about this challenge. I actually did it at school. And I encouraged my girlfriend and brother to join me, Gabby and Ricardo. And this is why we took part. I encourage them to learn about the stock market. I think it's good to know, and just personal financial reasons. It's important to know about stock markets.
And then I'll talk about the team. You've just said you've got your girlfriend who's part of the team and your brother as well. You've all got different mindsets. You've got all different strategies when approaching the stock market. How do you guys come together to operate and navigate it, especially in the times that we are seeing at the moment?
Yes, well, the different skill sets is quite noticeable. So myself, I'm studying to be a chartered accountant. Gabby is studying to be a doctor, and Ricardo is studying to be an actuary. So three separate skill sets. How we come together is through learning through various ways and coming up with ideas and deciding on different investment techniques. We have had some experience. Well, like I said, I did it in school, and I also did it in 2020. So by learning through those experiences, we learned that the game has a certain style of investing that you should try to follow. When you consider the current stock market volatility, this year is obviously very, very volatile. I mean, the JSE, if I'm not mistaken, in the last month has risen about 9%. Just the last month's earnings, you could have basically shot right to the top. it's actually an opportunity more than a threat. I guess it's a threat for the people on top, but for the people that want to climb and grow, it's an opportunity because the market's consistently changing and moving, opportunities to trade.
And then how have you all then decided to approach the trading? You've spoken about the volatility, and a lot of market participants, when there is a lot of uncertainty on the global markets, instead of holding onto a share or keeping it as it is, they usually sell immediately. So it's like a knee-jerk reaction. Whereas oftentimes people are told to be patient on the market despite all the noise that may be happening. So what strategy do you guys have in place when you approach trading, without giving away your trading secrets, of course?
Well, for me, I think number one, you should have a strategy and write it down. I think that's important. And number two, um, just the team. It's actually very beneficial. So, for example, the other day, so we're currently on top of the leaderboard, and the other day, the guys in second place climbed quite a substantial amount, and the team was like, "Let's just stay calm. Let's not make any rash decisions. Let's try this out. Let's see how it goes." And I think that's the benefit of a team versus being alone. The team, where one person maybe is a bit worried, a bit scared, the team, another team member will be a bit more calm, and that's the great joy about having a team.
Sectors, Roberto, this is a difficult one because there are those that you have to avoid right now, and there are those that you can take advantage of. In looking at the market movements and the volumes that are being bought and sold on a daily, what sectors have you decided to stay away from for now, and which are those that you think these could bring in the right kind of investment returns?
Well, obviously the competition is still going on, so without getting too specific, I try to avoid sectors where there's a lot of hype. So right now, mining. So there are some traders that feel like they want to climb the wave. Myself, I would never know when to get out. So you buy a mining share tomorrow, it climbs 10% over the following week. I would not know when to sell. Just think to hold this forever, and then 2 weeks later, I'm down 20%. So because of that, I try to avoid sectors that are in the news. I try to look for things that are rather unloved. So yeah, that's how we play it. We don't. So if there's something in the news, I try to say, okay, let's just wait. Let's wait a month. Let's see where this thing is. So I guess the greatest story is in 2020, Sasol, right, at 22 rand. Everyone was like, this thing's going out of business. Things going out of business. Not think that the world would probably return back to normal. And look at Sasol now. So yeah.
And interestingly, you speak about Sasol. There's another company that's doing extremely well, Tungela Resources. It started off at about 25 Rand a share and shot up to around 300 Rand a share. And that's just based on what we're seeing with the Russian invasion. Obviously, there will be a correction, Roberto. We're going to see a settling of the tensions between the United States and China, and of course, what we're seeing with the Russian invasion. And then, of course, the inflationary pressures that we're seeing in the United Kingdom and the rest of Europe, as well as the United States. Do you look at those global events quite closely when you are deciding on which direction to go as a market participant?
I do. So I personally also enjoy global politics, just international affairs. I absolutely love it. Love to learn about it. Maybe that's a detriment to investing, but then again, you have to know all factors before you make a decision. Most of the companies in JSE, especially in the top 40, are internationally diversified. There's not one company basically that doesn't have operations overseas that's in the top 40. And because of that, you definitely need to know what's happening overseas. In fact, about a month ago, there was a story doing the rounds on many of the media outlets about how if you look at the returns on the JSE, it's very, very closely related to China. So if you want to invest in the JSE, you have to have an opinion on China, basically was what the person was trying to say. And I think that to some extent is very accurate. I mean, for just taking mines, for example, and Tungela, like you're saying, one of the biggest customers, no doubt, is China now because of the Russia and Ukraine war. Obviously, Europe's become a bigger factor, but China's always been a major contributor to the South African economy. So if you don't know what's going on internationally, it's very, very difficult to invest locally.
And for those who are obviously watching and are thinking about participating in the next challenge at some stage, what tips would you give them? And maybe start that answer by giving us a sense of how easy it is or not to navigate the Johannesburg Stock Exchange and to trade.
Well, trading's hard. I've never known someone that would say trading's easy. All the greatest investors throughout the last 100 years, all of them weren't traders. They were investors, waited for the long term. So trading is definitely a very hard skill. You can get one right, one wrong. There's a lot of strategies and techniques that people use. However, I think for anyone who wants to or is thinking about doing the JC Challenge, absolutely do it. It's an incredible experience. Whether you're first or you're last, you're definitely going to learn a lot. Um, in terms of tips, I would say stay calm, make a strategy, outline what your goal is. I think that's very important. Like, read the rules, outline what you think is possible, and try your best. And if it doesn't go well, it's okay. If it goes well, enjoy it. And that would be my top tips, I guess, for anyone looking to do it. I
And
encourage everyone to do it. I think it's a great experience.
yeah, and I have to ask you, just based on your keenness on stock exchanges and markets and how they move, do you have a favorite broker or investment firm? I know when we ask this question, everybody will always say something like Warren Buffett, one of the most world famous investors who's done well on a sustainable level for decades now. But do you have the same sense, or do you have someone else who you have drawn some inspiration from?
Obviously, everyone has drawn some inspiration from Warren, even if they know nothing about him. We all draw some inspiration from him. But actually, one of my favorite investors is a guy named Carl Icahn. He's in the US. He's an activist investor. He's also a very well-known investor. His strategy is a bit different, a bit more short-term based, and he's an activist investor, like I say. So it's not only based on value, just looking at a company, determining whether there's something that if he applies pressure, maybe he can change management or encourage a share buyback, something would happen. So I really take a lot of inspiration from him. I think he has a lot of courage and definitely plays an important role in our society, holding, the financial markets, I guess, accountable to shareholders and to stakeholders. So he's one of my favorite investors.
Thank you very much for your time this afternoon. Roberto Aquelo joining us from the University of Witwatersrand. Now, his team called Dancing in the Dark. It's a team of himself, his brother and his girlfriend. Very different minds, studying very different things. And of course, they're coming together, putting together a strategy to trade on the Johannesburg Stock Exchange. And he says it's not easy, but you have to be calm and you have to keep your patience. And that is what will get you through the challenge. And of course, understandably, he wasn't giving away any of his trading secrets because it is a competition at the end of the day. Let's bring in another cohort of participants. And this one particularly excites me because it's a group of young ladies who have formed a team and they are investing in this particular challenge and doing particularly well. And they're going to be telling us how they are doing so as young as they are. So in August, Women's Month, it's really inspiring to see such a beautiful interaction within the financial space, something that's traditionally dominated by other people who more advantaged than others would be. So we've got the Akudio College Crystal Park rather, and they call themselves ACCP. It's Simbongile Ntombela, Sharon Ramasahala. We've got Pamela Buroko and Mamukhoto Monareng. Hi ladies, I don't know if you can hear me. So excited to speak to you all as participants in the JSE Investment Challenge. First of all, everyone identify themselves and tell us a little bit about the team.
Good day, ma'am. I'm Pamela Buroko from a group called Maulana Karenga. So far we don't have like any challenges. Yeah, we are a good team.
Good day, ma'am. I'm Sharon Ramashala. My group name is Euphorian Stand, which stands for excitement. When we came about with the name, we didn't really know the meaning of the name, but as we went about, we got to understand. And we don't have any challenges in JSE because my team members are cooperative and they are listening, and yeah, all is well.
Good day, ma'am. I'm Simbongile Ndala, and my team is Osiris. and it stands for the Egyptian god of the underworld. And so far, the challenges we have are missions, and that's all.
It looks
Good
like,
day, ma'am. My name is Mary.
please finish your introduction.
Yes, my name is Mahoto Munaren, and I'm from the Shoshan group. Shoshan was a founder of the 22nd of Dynasty of Egypt, and so far, me and my group are doing very well.
Of course, you're all doing very well. And you say that you're not having too many challenges because your teamwork is cooperative and people gel together quite well within the team. So maybe just tell us why, and I'll start with you, Sharon, why you decided to be a part of the investment challenge. I must just indicate we've got a little bit of a network issue, so we're going to try get as much information and insight from you as much as we can before anything else may happen. So Sharon, start us off with why you decided to participate in this challenge.
Well, the reason why we decided to take part of this challenge is because, well, first of all, our teacher, Mr. Mahlangu, inspired us by telling us about the school that he came from that was in the challenge. And we saw how interesting it was for us young children to engage in such opportunities which will build us as if we want to go into the industry of business.
Pamela, what has this taught you about trading and the Johannesburg Stock Exchange? Because everybody thinks it's such a scary thing to do, but obviously you've learned some things, and what have those things been?
Yes, ma'am. Truly speaking, at first I also thought that it is scary and difficult. But then as time goes, I saw that nothing is scary, and I like money. So it was interesting for me, like to deal with money, do trading. Yeah. So
Yeah.
it's not that scary.
Makhatso, do you like money as well? What are some of the sectors that you guys look at when you're trading? You don't have to give away your secrets, don't worry. But some of the things you're looking at when you are deciding on making an investment decision.
Yes, I do love money. So, what I like about JSE is that we are trading and quoting everything. And truly speaking, I'm really good in maths, and I like dealing with numbers.
Yeah, Sibongile, can you hear? If you can hear me as well, I just want to get your insights on what you think about as a team when you are making an investment decision during this challenge. What are some of the things that you're focusing on? What are some of the things that you are not trying to focus on as you make those decisions?
But the first thing, the things we're focusing on is like trading and everything. And sometimes we won't check the numbers because we really get scared when we're trading and all of those stuff. Because if we check the numbers, we get really scared that we getting lower and other people are getting higher. And yeah, JC is pretty nice. And yeah, I also like money. So.
We all love money, ladies. We all love money very much. I just want to ask you about some of the big events that are happening globally. Do you see the news about Russia and the Ukraine and the war there? Do you see what's happening between China and the United States? And also this thing of inflation where we are all around the world paying more for food, for petrol, and for every little thing that we use. Do you think that you guys look at that when you are trading on the JSE? I want to get your sense first, Sharon.
Well, ma'am, we noticed that the Ukraine war, has benefited Tungela to go high, which is our Tungela known as our coal business, yeah, which helps us on our portfolios to increase our chances to win in the JSE challenge.
Mm-hmm. Any other important sectors that you, Pamela, would have seen because of what's happening around the world?
So far, ma'am, because I'm new in this JSE, so like we were lucky. My team and I were lucky to win the monthly challenge. So far, I only know about the Ukraine and the Tumela thing that Sharon has already said.
Yeah, so it's very interesting insight, and I just want to know, for those of us who are watching and who aren't participating in the Johannesburg Stock Exchange Investment Challenge at the moment, but now you've made us a little bit interested because of the investment opportunities that would be created. Makgotso, I want to get your sense here. What kind of advice would you give to someone who's saying, maybe this could be something I could try?
So JSE is not a very difficult challenge. At first, it can be difficult, but when you start to understand the numbers, you'll see, correct, no, it's not difficult.
Ladies, thank you very much for joining me this afternoon and sharing your insights. A smart set of young ladies that are taking on the Johannesburg Stock Exchange and reaping the opportunities that it has to offer. Thank you very much, ladies. I was speaking there to the ladies from ACCP, Simbongile Ntombela, Sharon Ramashala, Pamela Buroko, and Makgotso Monareng, the students there that are participants in the Johannesburg Stock Exchange challenge. Now, if your interest was piqued, you can go ahead and register on www.jse.co.za and keep in touch with the stock exchange on its social medias, Twitter, Facebook, and they've got a YouTube channel as well. So you can go register and practice until the next challenge comes up. And who knows, you might find yourself winning some exciting things after that particular challenge. So good luck to the current participants that are within the challenge at the moment. We'll be catching up with them, obviously. And until then, we'll catch up with you guys next time. Take care.